Hey there, welcome to today's episode. We're going to take a look at the sample pool because a lot of new users don't understand that the sample pool exists, how to find it, what it's for, and it can be a little bit confusing. You might even have tried to load a sample at some point and it kind of looks like it's loaded, but it's disappeared. You've got no idea where it went. It went to the sample pool. The sample pool is just any samples associated with the current project. It's a little home, a little house, a place to put all of these. If you load something to a pad, one of your drum tracks, that also goes into the sample pool. Everything goes in there, but it's easy to load something and then it disappears with the MPC and it can be pretty confusing, so I want to clear that up. Throughout this tutorial series, I might refer to the sample pool. I may even pull samples from that location, and I want you to understand what we're doing as we go through. So let's clear that up. We go to browsing, which we've already done. You know how to browse samples and load them to a pad. You may notice if you've got a keen eye, it says load to pool here. You might even have tried it, and then the sample disappears and you don't know what the hell happened to it. That's because you loaded it to the sample pool, but if you don't know where that is, then it's also a problem. So I just want to load a couple of things to show you. Let's load up this kick drum here. We select this one. I'm actually going to load this to a pad. So like we've said before, make sure the pad is selected green and I load it up. I go to main. This one is inside of the drum track. It's very obvious. It's here. That is now also in the sample pool. But if we go back to browsing and I choose another one, I don't know, this one makes no difference, and I load it to the pool, which is what happens when you don't select a pad. And as a new user, that happens all the time. You may think that you've pressed the pad or you've selected something. Actually, you haven't selected anything. If you've got nothing selected and you press load, it's the same as pressing load to pool. It just goes to the sample pool. It even tells you it's loaded, but you've got no idea where it went. So deliberately, this next sample, we're going to load to the pool, not to the pad. But if we go to sample assign, that is where the sample pool is located. Why they don't really call it the sample pool, considering it says load to pool, is beyond me, because you then should just call it load to sample assign or something that's linked. For new users, it's a little bit confusing. If we go to sample assign, here we are inside of our sample pool. And there's a bunch of things that you can do in here, but I just want you to understand the basics. And really, that is that although we've got one sample loaded up, our LA kick, which we loaded to the pad, which we can see, the second sample that we loaded, this rock sample, is still in the sample pool. So if we save this project, that sample is going to be included in that, even if it's not associated to any kind of track. It's not being used. It's not of any great use. That's a problem sometimes if you've done this multiple times. You can have a bunch of samples in here and then your project file's really big. It also happens when you're auditioning files. If you're trying out a couple of different kick drums, maybe you've loaded a ton of these up but didn't decide to use them, they can still be in the sample pool. Now, what you can do from here as well is you can select pads and you can clear a pad. So while we're in this sample pool, let's just take a look at some of the basic functions. But if I was on this pad and I wanted to clear it, I can do so. If I wanted to load up this other sample, I can double click on that one and swap it out and load it. And you'll notice a couple of other things. You can audition and you can play. You can choose the bank. You can even choose the track that you're currently working on in terms of messing around with it. If we long press, you can delete the sample, or you can choose to stream it from disk, which is obviously very handy. And the other important thing here is how to clear out samples. So let's say by mistake or on purpose, you filled up your sample pool with a bunch of samples, but in the end, you only used a select amount of those samples within your track. You don't want this big fat file that you have to send to people or share. So what you can do, you can go to main, and if you go over to your menu, you will notice up here, we have memory and CPU. If I click this and I say purge, it's going to get rid of any samples not being used. So that means they're not within some kind of drum track or something like that where they've been assigned. Anything that's not assigned, it's just sitting in the sample pool, will be purged and we can get rid of it. I hope that makes sense because understanding the sample pool is pretty important. It's very common for new users to try and load something. It says it's loaded, but it disappears. You have no idea where it is. It's inside your sample pool. See you in the next episode.